The forging of these metals is something that blacksmiths would struggle with today.
Previous to that, they were only using copper, which could also be work hardened, but it lost its edge a lot faster, and it didn't cast so well as bronze. Some of the workmanship involved is, we would struggle to do it today.
The use of bronze ensured that the axe heads were stronger and would keep their sharp edges for longer. In the right hands, they were lethal. Today, Egyptologists are now starting to truly understand the advanced metallurgy behind weapon technology in Egyptian times.
This is a replica of an ancient Egyptian battle axe. It dates to the period of the New Kingdom, which is the time of Thutmose III and Ramesses II. Now, it's very easy to look at museum objects in glass cases and look at them as nice objects in their own right, but it's easy to forget this is a killing machine. It was designed to actually kill people. The copper or bronze blade is actually lashed to the handle with leather thonging. Now, it may seem a very flimsy way of securing it, but the leather is put on when it's still untreated, and it shrinks and tightens, and that's a really secure fixing. That means that soldiers can do their own maintenance. If they have a damaged handle, they can replace the handle and do it themselves. You don't need a big military workshop there. This long haft of the axe, it gives it a longer swing when you're using it, and this flared shape at the end, again, that's not just nice design, it's to stop the axe falling out of your hand when you're using it if you're hot and sweaty.
But how powerful was the penetrative axe when tested against an ancient helmet?
Definitely a better strike than the mace. Almost managed to cleave the helmet. Right through inside, probably a fractured skull. Not a happy bunny.
But did soldiers use body armor in battles? Because of the intense heat, most of the body was exposed to the force of bows and blades. Only occasionally were charioteers shown wearing leather bands around their bodies. However, the pharaoh had to be protected in battle. Famously, on this ornate chest, Tutankhamun is depicted wearing body armor. Ramses II would also go into battle wearing leather body armor. Yet the Hittites were more advanced. Intriguingly, they had actually developed flexible metal armor.
This is a replica, this is a reconstruction which was done a few years ago. Each piece is overlapping half of the other one. By making them overlap each other, you get a closed armor, but that is also flexible. If an arrow hits this straight, it can't get through. And even if it hits from the side, it gets stuck between these plates. This one is made for humans, to prevent humans from getting hurt, but there are larger ones which were obviously used for horses.
The infantry relied upon their shields as their protection. They relied on a design that they had been using successfully for centuries. These Egyptian shields show the construction using wood covered with leopard hide. Those in use on the battlefield would be similar in design but less extravagant.
This is a replica of an ancient Egyptian shield. Again, the original dates to the period of the New Kingdom. It's made of wood overlaid with leather. And you can see by the size, it's superbly designed to actually protect the upper part of your body. This shield is big enough to shield me and maybe one other person from incoming arrows or from spears or blows from axes. It's also large enough to kneel behind. Imagine facing the incoming Egyptian infantry. They have a wall of shields like this. They will be impenetrable to your arrows and when you're at close quarters to your swords and battle axes.
Ramses II demanded the best weapon technology available for his troops, but he was up against great competition. Weapons such as the khepesh were particularly deadly. Its curved shape derived originally from a farming sickle used to cup crops. Although it had humble origins, the khepesh was in fact an extremely effective and versatile weapon. The cutting edge is actually on the outside of the curve.
This is a straight-edge sword, probably been brought in by mercenaries, based on a Greek design really. The Romans also used swords similar to this, and they were used throughout Europe. Their skill was far superior to ours in a lot of respects, and we have definitely lost some of the technology, and we're actually now rediscovering it.
These 3,000-year-old swords are the type to have been favored by Ramses II. They are European straight swords, which were tapered to a point with the center of gravity at the back. They were lightweight and could be used by an average infantryman for fencing. Their slashing power made them a deadly weapon.
The Hittites and other enemies of the Egyptians favoured a straight sword. It's a good thrusting sword, but in open combat it can still be used to slash. So it still has a cutting capacity. It's a dual-purpose weapon. The Egyptians favoured the khopesh. It has this curved blade, and the thing about curved blades is as they lay on the flesh they naturally impart a slicing motion. They're technically more efficient at the cut. I've looked at these on the wall carvings for years and always thought they were rather primitive, like a sickle. They've just picked up an agricultural tool. It was a primitive, ungainly, ugly weapon. But this fine reproduction tells me it's a really beautifully designed weapon. In fact, it's almost perfectly designed because it has every function. I can still thrust with it because the curve is so created that the thrusting point is a direct line from my shoulder. And it's also got this little hook, so I can get in, I can hook an enemy's shield, bring it down and jab him in the face. And if that hasn't done it, slash open his jaw. I think this would be my weapon of choice.
Ramses II knew he had to have the best swords and developed a range, including the short straight sword and the longer Egyptian blades. These would form a major role in the Egyptian infantry arsenal. Yet there was another more highly prized and technologically advanced weapon in the ancient arms race: the lethal composite bow. In Egypt in the 12th century BC, Ramses II was building a powerful fighting force to protect Egypt and conquer new lands. Yet he would need the most advanced weaponry available to achieve this. One of the most highly developed weapons which would impact on the battlefield was the composite bow. Deep in the bowels of the Cairo Museum can be found a unique set of Egyptian composite bows. These amazing weapons are 3,000 years old and have been magnificently engineered. Bows and arrows had been used for centuries by the Egyptians, but invading enemies like the Hyksos brought new technology.
You have the Hyksos coming in with their compound bows, confronting the Egyptians. They can stand off out of range of the Egyptians and shoot them to pieces with compound bows. And the only solution the Egyptians have to that is to get the compound bow themselves.
The Egyptians first used simple bows, which were between 3 to 6 feet in length, but these would be outperformed by the more powerful composite bow. It was constructed to achieve the greatest possible range while retaining a manageable size and weight.
Inside here is an extremely sophisticated piece of engineering.
The engine of the bow is created using thin strips of buffalo horn, which keep their shape and act as a powerful spring during firing. The horn was attached to a pre-formed piece of wood with resin and left to set for a month.
Once that's set, then the string comes off, and that's a bonded unit. Your horn's there. You've got a powerful spring, but there's so much energy locked up in there that it will explode on release and could break.
To bind the structure together, animal sinew was used. Beaten until fibrous, it was bound around the main structure for greater penetration.
These are incredibly strong fibers that resist tension. And eventually, it's going to look something like this. And this is then layered on the composite of wood and horn, and it gives strength and protection to the whole structure.
All the elements of the bow were held together using a resin glue derived from fish, but this would take a great deal of time to set.
This is going to take something like 18 months to 2 years before it sets to the right and stable consistency. So making a composite bow was a very highly developed technology, but it was an incredibly expensive technology.
Today's equivalent composite materials are fiberglass and carbon fiber.
It's the same thing. Horn is essentially carbon. So when that's laminated with fiberglass, these are the materials that we go to space in and the other gizmos of our modern day society. But the concept of composite structure giving extreme strength is as old as the Egyptians.
With a composite bow, you don't need to restring it just before the battle. You can actually carry the bow around ready strung for quite long periods. So the composite bow was a big leap ahead from that point of view and was absolutely essential to the new Egyptian armies of the New Kingdom.
This was a really ingenious piece of technology. If you look at it in its unstrung shape, you will see how the composite materials, the horn, the sinew and the wood, have been set for a pre-formed shape. So you can see these limbs are already set as a spring, so that when I string it, you've already loaded the spring in its state of rest. These limbs are already straining forward, and you get this wonderful shape that we see on all the wall carvings. And then when I pull it, it changes shape yet again and metamorphosizes into this wonderful crescent arc, full of power.
The composite bow would take 18 months to complete, so they were a precious and revered weapon. These extremely ornate composite bows were found in the tomb of Tutankhamun and are some of the finest examples ever discovered. The composite bow was the most powerful ancient bow to exist. Its design was developed over thousands of years until it was perfect. But how powerful was it?
This is a bow of the Mongolian type. It's a horse archer's bow, designed to be used from horseback. These that you see here are sears, and they're held to the bow by the knee, and they extend extra energy to the bow once it's drawn back. They give you a virtually unlimited draw right back across the chest, and that's when the bow really starts working. That's when the sears impart the energy to the bow. This is a modern composite. It's a copy, and it's made with modern materials, which are quite good, but not as good as the original materials. They were made by craftsmen. They were very, very, very potent. I would say you're probably looking at something twice as powerful as what we use now.
The speed of the arrow leaving the bow is incredibly fast, yet only when we film at high speed and slow down the image can we see how effective and highly engineered this weapon really is.
Action!
Yeah, you can already see the sears there, the slight sears starting to come in. Once the arrow is released, it actually bends around the bow to allow it to carry on straight. And then what it does is what we call fishtail, from side to side until it straightens up. And you'd probably be looking at probably close to 300 feet per second for an arrow.
300 feet per second. That's over 200 miles per hour. The impact from such a weapon would be fatal. Ramses II had amassed a powerful arsenal of weaponry in order to challenge the Hittites at the Battle of Kadesh. Yet there would be one more weapon which would be crucial in the outcome: the lightning-fast super chariot.